County Commissioners meeting of Indian River County. We're going to begin with an invocation by Stan Bowling of the Community Development Department, followed by the pledge by Commissioner O'Brien.
Let's pray. This morning, Lord God, we remember from your word that even when we are not faithful, you are faithful. You can only be true to who you are, and you always are, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your faithfulness. We ask that you would increase our faithfulness to follow you as we taste things that are from you, things that are good: love, joy, peace, patience, grace, mercy, purity, holiness, self-control, all those things that reflect who you are. Lord, we ask that we would not be satisfied with that taste, but that we would crave more and we would pursue more. Help us do that. We ask that you would motivate us today and this week to do that. And so we lift up to you the decisions that the board and others will be making today. We ask that you would be glorified and served. Your good purposes would be served by those decisions and how they are carried out. And we ask for all the help that we need in recognizing that and doing that. And we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll now ask if there are any additions or deletions to today's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a proclamation recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Indian River County Volunteer Ambulance Squad.
Any other additions or deletions?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
We have a motion to approve as amended from Commissioner O'Brien, second from Commissioner Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We'll now go to proclamations and presentations. First, we have a presentation of a proclamation designating May 1st through 7th, 2016 as Public Service Recognition Week. And before I pass the gavel over to Commissioner Davis to present this, I'd like to invite every member here from the county who's here for the Public Service Recognition Week to just come on up if they want to and either come to a podium or to the front of us. So we have, I think, people like Steve Adamson, Ron Hunt, John Akany, Michael Barkwell, Tanya Huff, Ed Koveski, and George Perez, Sasan, Rahani, Sandra Seeley. Come on up, don't be shy. Denise Sleeman, Edward Stiffen, Gary Wiles, Sandra Wright. Thank you very much for coming up here.
Hang right there for now.
That's good. And I will now pass it over to Commissioner Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's with great honor that I read this proclamation designating May 1st through the 7th, 2016 as Public Service Recognition Week in Indian River County. Whereas public employees at the federal, state, and local levels conduct the public's business and perform essential services. And whereas public employees improve our quality of life through their efforts in many fields, including education, emergency management, public safety, transportation, natural resources, health, and national defense. And whereas public employees dedicate themselves to the continuous improvement of the quality of life for Floridians and many, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, healthcare practitioners, and others risk their lives every day in public service. And whereas the efficiency and effectiveness of government depends on public employees ensuring government services are accessible and responsive to the diverse needs of residents. And whereas the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners recognize the dedication, talents, and contributions made by public employees working in all levels of government. And whereas the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners appreciates our county employees who, by their example of achievements, are focusing on the highest standards of customer service. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the week May 1st through the 7th, 2016, be observed as Public Service Recognition Week, and encourage all Indian River County residents to recognize the men and women who serve at all levels of government for the betterment of our great country, state, and nation. Adopted this 3rd day of May 2016, signed by all 5 county commissioners. To everybody, thank you very much, and feel free. We'd love to hear from you. It's amazing the job that y'all do, And when I look at the difference that you make in the community, to those that are behind the scenes, to those that are on the front lines. I was just talking to the deputies out front just a minute ago for what we see going on in communities around this nation, right here at our back door. It's just like there's nothing seem normal anymore, but yet it's what you do every day. And so, just as a single commissioner, but more importantly, just as a resident of this community, thank you.
I'd like to add to that if I could. I mean, Joe Barrett isn't here today, but he often mentions the fact that this is a great county because of the work that the county employees do, and I'll second that every day. I'll just note that the range of things that the county employees does to make this a great county is incredibly varied. A lot of us saw a video of the two sheriff's deputies who at great risk to themselves pulled a woman out of a burning car some weeks ago. And that was a great thing. Yesterday morning, I got to work and I got an email from a South County resident who just wrote to say that the person who mows the ditch banks by one of the canals in the South County does a wonderful job. So all these things are incredibly important in making a great county, and they're done well because of you, and I thank you very much for that. Mr. Chairman? Mr. Zort?
Yes, I see a lot of happy faces out there that I've known for a long time, but just to put a little history to it, how many of you have been with the county 10 years or more?
Wow.
And how many, maybe 20? So that we don't show the...
Next week, then.
But, I've got to work with a lot of you over the years, George, pre-knee brace, pre-cane. But the service that all you folks do, and it's just much appreciated, sort of the unsung heroes for a lot of things of how do things happen, and people don't know the processes and procedures that you guys help make everything that goes on in the county, whether it's big or small. If a small thing doesn't get done enough, it becomes a big problem. So the small things are just as important as the big items that people see every day. So thank you very much for all your service to all the residents of the county. Thank you.
Just kind of ditto to everything, and thank you all very much for your service. But kind of what I've seen over the last few years is our employees have really stepped up a notch, particularly where we interface more with the customers, like in the building department and the utilities and things. The number of complaints I'm getting now is down to zero. And I think everybody's working hard to make sure that we're giving the best customer service we can. And that goes a long way to serving the public and fostering a good community. So I just want to thank you all for your efforts and keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Thank you for what you do every day, not just some of those days. And I truly appreciate the role modeling that you do when we bring in some individuals and we take the time to interrupt your day, and you are there to represent us and do so well and explain exactly what you're doing and where we're going and what challenges we do have. So I proudly say thank you. I also want to thank our Human Resources Department for finding individuals like you, because we do have the cream of the crop. And I hope that we continue to find and secure those and have those individuals work for us for 10, 20, and 30 years. So thank you for your dedicated efforts.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to say our county employees are very valuable in keeping regular life going. There's a lot of things that people take for granted in life, like safe drinking water supply, and drainage and our road systems. If the drainage isn't working properly, we hear about it, but if it is working properly, there aren't that many attaboys. So I think this is an important opportunity to say great job for all those things that go right 99.9% of the time, and it's thanks to our folks, and I'd put our county employees up against any city or county employees out there. They really make the county work and do a great job for us.
Yeah, can you get a picture?
So, George, are you competing with Stan?
He's quicker than I am.
Good morning, Ronald. How are you?
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Nice to see you. Good morning.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Scott, how are you?
Good
Good
morning.
morning, sir. How are you?
I did.
Oh, sorry I butchered your name.
Oh, hey, George, do you guys want a picture centered up here in the front? I don't know if Scott or somebody might have. Oh, okay. Okay, at count of three, everybody say drop program.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again.
We will now have the presentation of a proclamation designating the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2016 as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Sheriff. This will be presented by Commissioner Flesher to Sheriff Moore and Major Shelby Strickland and some other officers. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. You know, earlier today we heard about unsung heroes, and I immediately thought of our correctional employees, our correctional deputies. You see, with all the stresses that are happening in society, and we hear many of these different lives matter, the deputies who wear the same uniform that are out on the road oftentimes hear from the citizens, "Thank you. We appreciate you." It does happen, folks, believe it or not. Indian River does respect their law enforcement officers. The citizens do appreciate their services. But somehow, because I guess you're providing the care, custody, and control, and the very reason why you have that citizen contact, I don't believe too many of the inmates express their appreciation for your service. But I want you to know that the citizens do appreciate that you're keeping us safe. As a representative of all of our citizens, that you're doing a job that many people would not want to do, to be locked inside of a facility for countless hours and making sure that those individuals have what they need, they're safely contained, and we are safe out here in society. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. And then now I will proceed with the proclamation. The proclamation reads as follows, designating the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2016 as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week. Whereas in 1984, President Ronald Reagan signed the Proclamation 5187, creating National Correctional Officers Week. In 1996, the U.S. Senate officially changed the name of the week to National Correctional Officers and Employees Week. The first full week in May is recognized as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week to honor the work of correctional officers and correctional personnel nationwide. National Correctional Officers and Employees Week has been declared as May 1st through 7th, 2016. And whereas Indian River County staff of correctional officers, nurses, civilian correction assistants, and support staff serve in an increasingly complex and demanding profession and work in correctional environment, where they are called upon to fill simultaneously custodial, supervisory, and counseling roles. They are responsible for the custody, safety, and well-being of the inmates within Indian River County. And whereas in today's profession, correctional officers and correctional personnel are well-trained, work under demanding circumstances, and face danger in their daily lives. Whereas the work of correctional officers and correctional personnel comes with huge responsibility to maintain public safety as well as to help the inmates develop skills necessary to become productive members of society. Whereas correctional officers and correctional personnel deserve our show of support as we utilize this week to honor their hard work, professionalism, dedication, and courage throughout the performance of their demanding and often conflicting roles and the efforts to protect the public safety. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2016 be designated as National Correctional Officers Employees Week in Indian River County, duly adopted this third day of May 2016 and respectfully signed by all of our 5 county commissioners. Sheriff.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. It's an honor and a pleasure. With me today is Major Selby Strickland. He has been with the agency in July 25 years. Next to him is Captain Ryan Hatfield, who is approaching 20 years. And next to him is Lieutenant Adam Bailey, who is the rookie of the bunch with only about 14 years of service. So you see the succession plan going, gentlemen. You know, we are the largest, I guess you could call us mental health receiving facility, primary care receiving facility in the county. We're very proud of that. Many of you have visited us. We have a lot of moving parts. Last night we had 420 inmates in custody. Every year we process 5,500 inmates coming and going. Oftentimes some are more frequent visitors than others. But please know that anytime anyone is arrested in the United States, whether it be on federal charges, state charges, or local charges, they go through a county jail and they are processed. Know that about 70% are pretrial detainees. They have not gone to court yet, so 70% have their rights that we must entertain and provide certain amenities to, obviously, which is costly. We have one of the best reentry programs in the state of Florida. You may recall about 4 months ago, a young man actually tried to break into our jail, and thank you for paying for the fence, Commissioner Solari.
Was it the food?
The food, and he had some friends, ironically, that he wanted to see. But believe it or not, 2 weeks ago, at one of our rehabilitation programs, that same young man that attempted to break into our jail with his car graduated from one of our programs, and we're proud to say after that 12-week program, he is well on his way to being rehabilitated. Additionally, the gentleman behind me, in cooperation with our Mental Health Association and Collaborative Friends, have handled mental health court for some 18 months now. We have 63 participants in that, and that is a different change in dynamics for county sheriff's offices to handle. Know that there's about 102,000 state prisoners in the state of Florida, and of course every county has a county jail or 2. Some bigger counties have more than 1 jail. So we're very proud of these men and women. They're often unrecognized because they are behind the scenes. It is a full service operation from laundry to food to clothing and to the other things that we mentioned, and we're proud of that, and we're honored that you recognize us for National Corrections Week. Thank you.
Thank you. Frequent state points out at the
Sheriff Major's got it.
photo in the middle.
Yeah, you want to get a photo? I don't blame you, but
Well, some of those standing behind you.
yeah. Don't want to get in this, guys? We'll let you.
Come on, rookies.
Yeah.
Let's get in with the program here.
They're new.
Like a good picture of Scott's fingertips.
We will now have the presentation of a proclamation designating the month of May 2016 as Mental Health Awareness Month. We have 2 different mental health groups here today. One, Suncoast Mental Health Center, and the other, New Horizons. If each group could get to one podium, I'll pass it to Commissioner O'Brien to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give everybody a minute here to get settled and organized. You know, the sheriff did mention the mental health court, and this proclamation is for Mental Health Awareness Month. And I just want to say I was extremely proud of this board when a year and a half ago we voted to fund the mental health court. I think that was a huge paradigm shift in our philosophy. We recognized that mental health was a critical need in the community, and I was just very proud of this board for stepping up and taking that action. I think it's made a huge improvement in a lot of individual lives. Unfortunately, we still have a ways to go, but I think we're a big step forward. So let me, we'll read the proclamation, then we'll let each group have a little word for us, okay? This is a proclamation designating the month of May 2016 as Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health helps to sustain an individual's thought processes, relationships, productivity, and ability to adapt to change or face adversity. And mental illness adversely affects those abilities and often is life-threatening in nature. And whereas 1 in 4 adults experiences mental health problems in any given year, and such problems can contribute to onset of mental illness. And whereas 12 youths to age 24 commit suicide every day in the United States. And in 2014, there were 26 suicides in Indian River County. And 1 in 17 adults lives with mental illness such as major depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. And approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14 and 3/4 by age 24. And whereas long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And early identification and treatment can make a profound difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery, and it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to get help when it is needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long has surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, that the month of May 2016 be designated as Mental Health Awareness Month in Indian River County, Florida, to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote identification and treatment of mental illnesses. Adopted this 3rd day of May 2016 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. And why don't we start here with New Horizons and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, commissioners, for taking this time to recognize the importance of mental health issues. I'm Pat Austin from New Horizons, and as you said, Commissioner O'Brien, the statistics are really appalling. I mean, 1 in 4, it could be me, it could be you, it could be a friend or a neighbor who is coping with a mental health issue. And without the proper treatment, those individuals face a really dreadful life. They're most likely going to experience social isolation. It's going to be hard for them to find and keep a job. They're most likely going to lose their family, perhaps their home. They're going to need a great many social services. But if we can get these individuals into treatment at a proper time and support them, the narrative can be so different. One of our clients agreed that I could share her story with you today. Her name is Beth, and she was once a proud working woman in our community. She had a family, a home, a job that she was very proud of, but a mental health issue just really tore her life apart. The next thing she knew, she couldn't work anymore. Her family gradually drifted away. She lost her home. When we first met her, she was living in her car and spending her time trying to figure out how she was going to get her medications. But when she got into treatment, and she'll admit to you that getting into treatment sounds easier than it really is. She cried for the first several weeks. She didn't want to be there. But gradually, she became used to the idea that as you build a support system, as you get your medications managed, as you find ways to control your anger, you can get your skills back for independent living. You can once again start to think of a future. And so she'd want you to know that thanks to the assistance that the county offers, that New Horizons offers, that other organizations like Suncoast offers, she's now once again a proud working woman able to give back to her community. So on behalf of her and everybody whose lives will be much better because of your calling attention to this situation, we thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Art, a few words from Suncoast.
Sure, and first, also thank you, County Commissioners, for all of the work you do day in, day out, but in particular, the mental health court that you mentioned, up and running 16 months now. Special thanks to you, but also to Sheriff Lohr for having such a heart for this particular issue, and also Miss Lisa Kale, who's standing over there, who's the program administrator for the Mental Health Collaborative. She's bringing about some positive change here in Indian River County, and thank you, Lisa, for all the work you do. And also New Horizons, we're proud to partner with them also. Suncoast Mental Health Center is a 501c3 organization in the 4 counties. Here in Indian River, we're located in Vero Beach on Old Dixie Highway, just south of 16th Street and the fire station right there. We are proud that we've been around since 1998. And I just wanted to give a little bit more information. Commissioner O'Brien, you shared some wonderful or some statistics really telling a story about mental health, but I just wanted to add a few more. And I want to start with children. When we think of children between the ages of 8 and 18, 1/5 of them, 20%, has a mental health disorder that's severe enough to cause a significant impairment in their day-to-day lives. Now you think of those children in their day-to-day lives, where are they? They're in school, and how does that play out in the learning environment? These children with a mental health disorder are failing more classes, they're missing more days of school, they're earning a lower grade point average, and they're also being retained at grade level more than children with any other disability. And those kids who are 14 and older with a mental health disorder, 50% are dropping out of high school. And of that group that drops out of high school, 75% of them will be arrested within 5 years. So we can see the importance of that prevention, early detection and identification and treatment of mental health disorders for children to be successful in school. When we look at the adult population, we know that treating mental health conditions will decrease disability rates, will increase employment productivity, will decrease criminal justice costs, and will also decrease that suicide rate that we talked about. I just want to give, before I close, a special thanks to the folks who are with me today. We have our board treasurer, Mr. Frank Jensick, our director of operations, Ms. Kathy Cordero, and our clinical director at New Horizons, Ms. Jane Termail. We truly have a great team at Suncoast Mental Health Center. In closing, we're extremely grateful again for the work you all do, particularly with the mental health court and for those with mental health challenges. And Sheriff Lohr has long been an advocate and a participant in the Mental Health Collaborative run by Lisa Kale. It truly takes a village to really help children and adults. And I'm proud to say I've lived here in Vero Beach since 1986 and all the good things that are coming about. Treating mental health disorders, people have happier, healthier, more productive lives. And we thank you for this recognition of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all those public service employees we recognized earlier. We actually do have a proclamation for each of you. So if you want to come on up, we can give these to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you again. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thanks for coming. Good morning. Good morning. Photo?
Zeke? group want to get a photo, or you want to get a big group photo, or how you want to do it?
They're opting for the group.
Working together. Collaboration.
We got somebody, Lisa, we do have somebody. Yeah, you want to get in it?
Lisa, why don't you get in the photo? Yeah, thank you. We have the gavel.
And maybe a shift to the left. Yeah.
We'll now have the presentation of a proclamation recognizing May 1st, 2016 as the 50th anniversary of the Indian River County Volunteer Ambulance Squad. Commissioner Zorp will present this to Carl Gumbel, President of the IRC Volunteer Ambulance Squad.
Good morning. If you'd like to come up to the podium here, I'll read the proclamations and then look forward to hearing a few words from you about an upcoming event and some other comments that you'd like to make. This is a proclamation recognizing May 1st, 2016 as the 50th anniversary of the Indian River County Volunteer Ambulance Squad. Whereas prior to 1966, all emergency ambulance services in Indian River County were provided by local funeral homes. The Indian River County Volunteer Ambulance Squad held its first committee meeting in March of 1966, raised over 100 volunteers, and made its first official run on May 1st, 1966. Whereas from 1966 to 1989, the squad manned exclusively by volunteers provided basic life support care and transport to the residents of Indian River County. Units were organized into 4 6-hour shifts in order to provide the community with full 24-hour-a-day service funded solely by donations. Whereas in 1989, the Indian River County finally integrated advanced life support into the county through the use of paramedics, eliminating the need for volunteer emergency transport services. However, the volunteer ambulance squad still continues to provide non-emergency transportation to residents in need of medical treatment completely free of charge. And whereas the volunteer ambulance squad continues its tradition of public service, providing non-emergency transportation services to the residents of Indian River County in need of medical treatment. Through their efforts, over 67,500 trips have been provided to the residents of Indian River County in the past 5 years, driving over 632,000 miles, with 14,000 trips being made in 2015 alone. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 1st, 2016 commemorates the 50th anniversary of the Indian River County Volunteer Ambulance Squad, and the board commends the squad for its dedicated volunteers for the services they provide to the residents of Indian River County, adopted this 3rd day of May 2016, signed by all 5 county commissioners. And before you start, I can remember my first day of volunteering at the squad and seeing May 1st, 1966 on all of our patches and not thinking 50 years ahead of how far it would be. Myself, I'm a past 15-year plus volunteer of the squad, and many, many memorable moments of both tragedy and triumph all combined into one. One of the most stunning things that came from the interaction with the youth in the community was those that went on to be successful surgeons. I have a cousin, Tom, that got his introduction to medicine by riding on the ambulance and became a world-renowned surgeon in the Washington, D.C. area. There's Dr. Runyon, a clinical researcher in North Carolina now, got his introduction to medicine riding on the volunteer ambulance. And there's countless others that chose a path in the medical career by what they were introduced to by the experience of volunteering and being part of the community. So it's very heartfelt to think of the 50 years. I remember the picture of those standing there by that station wagon and recognizing most of the folks in that picture. But why don't you share a few words and also about the upcoming event?
Okay, first of all, we we do this with 10 vehicles now, and as Tim said, we had over 14,000 medical runs last year and the same the year before. And I guess what that really tells me is that the residents of Indian River County are caring people and give something back to the community. And I think that's what I take away from all this. This is April, our administrator. She's the voice of the squad. She's the only paid employee we have. Have 70 other volunteers, approximately. And I'll let her talk about the event coming up and also tell them about Tim's brother and dad also being volunteers.
All right. Well, as you said, we know that Commissioner Zork himself was on the squad many years ago, back when it was emergency. And I believe you rode with your dad and your brother, right, in one shift, which was kind of unusual. I met with your mother the other day, and she has a lot of memories of those days. So thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
At this very moment, we have 9 vehicles out on the road somewhere in the county, anywhere from Sebastian to South County. We do go to Fellsmere also. We take people to their medical appointments, non-emergency. This allows them to remain in their homes longer because they don't have to worry about how they're going to get to their appointments. There's never a charge for our service, and we're very proud of this fact that we have been able to keep going for 50 years until 1989 as emergency, and since 1989 as non-emergency, without costing the county residents anything, the county commission. We have not charged anybody. It's strictly donation, and we're very proud of that fact. We do currently have around 70 volunteers. This coming Saturday, May 7th, we are going to have a celebration of our 50 years over at the River House between 12 noon and 2 o'clock. This is a celebration for current and former volunteers. If anyone here either was a volunteer or knows of someone who is connected with the squad, please invite them. If they can, give me a call at the office. But if not, just show up. We want to thank anyone who ever played a part in this wonderful organization. And we thank the commission very much for thinking of us and recognizing us.
Thank you.
Just one last word. We got a national recognition award just recently. You'll see it in the paper here, hopefully before too long. And that's a very unique thing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Oregon to accept the award in the next couple of weeks. So that's quite an honor. So, and I want you to know that. Thank you.
I stand here in the middle and Scott will get your picture.
Okay, on 3. 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the minutes of the regular meeting of April 5th, 2016.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. We have some information items.
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of retirement awards. Just like to James Dupas with 27 years of emergency services fire rescue, and Joseph Gabbert with 30 years in road and bridge. We'd just like to thank those individuals for their service to the county. And also the upcoming May 14th Sebastian Lionfish Fest up at Captain Hiram's, and going to get those little rascals out of the waterways and eat them up. So
Excellent. So Commissioner Davis, how many of those lionfish are you going to get?
I'm kind of confused. When y'all say lion and fishing, it sounds like a,
Sounds like an average day for you.
regular fishing trip. So, but yeah, but it should be a good event. Looking forward to it.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, James Gray is here to stand in for Kendra Cope just to share a little bit more of the last minute information and the latest update on the event and the information that's on the county's website, if he might.
Very good. Mr. Gray.
Yes, for the record, James Gray, County Coastal Engineer. This event is actually, Lionfish Fest is the county's first event of this nature. These types of activities have been going on through the state as an awareness and removal of these invasive fish that are essentially denuding, or actually removing trophy fish and fish that we like to eat and fish for. So the event is May 14th. It's at Captain Hiram's. There's a fishing tournament in the morning, and then followed by the more public awareness activity of an eating event. So from 4 to 7 that evening, there will be several restaurants preparing lionfish dishes. Basically, the intent is most people are afraid to eat this fish because of the poisonous spines and so forth. The meat of the fish is not poisonous. So the awareness part of the whole activity, sponsored by Fish and Wildlife Commission, is to promote eating this fish. So Kendra Cope in our office, she's been working diligently with others and sponsorships to put this event on, and it should be a great event. We invite all of you to attend. Admissions is $15, and that's essentially for the eating part of the activity. There's raffles, there's a lot of vendor booths promoting awareness. It's a kid-friendly event, so we invite the public and obviously the commission to attend. As far as, I just wanted to highlight, as far as sponsorships and so forth for the event, we've raised over $13,000, essentially paying for the entire event through sponsorships. So that's what we have to offer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray.
So just real quick, so people are going to go out, they're going to catch the lionfish, and then they're going to come back and then have the event, or?
Yes, it's a two-part event. The morning sunrise to about 4 o'clock, there's a fishing tournament, essentially where teams will go out and hunt the fish, spearfish usually, that's how you have to catch this fish. They'll bring their catch back, and they'll use it for that activity. And we're also pre-purchasing 300 pounds of lionfish from a distributor up in north part of the state. They're actually collecting the fish for us right now, so we'll have them for the eating portion of the event. So, because it's sometimes difficult to catch these, but in our waters there are several of these lionfish around our reefs and so forth.
That's a smart move. I've learned early that the most expensive fish I ever ate in my life is the one I caught myself.
Yes. And I just also wanted to just highlight the website that we have, SebastianLionfishFest.com, for additional information.
Super.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, James. And when this idea first came up at Beach and Shores, about probably first surfaced in discussion in the meeting maybe, I don't know, 12, 14 months ago, and I reached out to some of the dive shops and some people that put on one down south and brought it back to Beach and Shores and just kind of offered it up to the group to see what they thought. And Kendra's eyes just kind of like, this would be great. The educational aspect for those in the community would be wonderful. But we've also got some great strategic partners. The Beth Mitchell and the Sebastian Chamber and all the staff up there have done an outstanding job helping out, attending the different committee meetings. And I think it's as well organized as a first event could ever be. And then we're looking at making this an annual event going forward. And I think the best way to describe lionfish is sort of the caviar of our offshore reefs. It's very expensive fish. It only eats the best of the best, though they say it tastes incredibly well. So I'm looking forward to having my first chance to eat some of it. So and the educational programs for the youth in the community and the adults, we've got some great educational participants. And the best part is the money we've raised up front will help underwrite the entire cost of the program. So that's a great event. And that they will purchase a meal ticket to do the sampling.
Correct.
And you can buy those online as well as you can register a team online
as well. Yes, you can do that. And they're $15, and the intent is to vote on your favorite dish among the restaurants present. So it should be a fun event for all.
Right. Thank you, Mr.
Excellent.
Yeah, two things. There's a video on a fishing site. Normally they say that lionfish doesn't have any natural predators, but there was a large mutton snapper that consumed a lionfish. So hopefully, the reef they're starting to fight back. And then, Mr. Chairman, just want to let you know, if you wanted to sponsor a team, my boat is still available. Just say the word and I'll put a team together for you.
A lion tamer?
I'd pay that just to watch him get seasick.
Yeah.
I just like how Commissioner O'Brien continues to dream. Mr. Gray, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. Gentlemen, would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item D.
Fine. Anybody else? I'll ask if anybody from the public would like to pull anything from the consent agenda. Gentlemen, I
Move
will.
as amended.
Approval as amended?
We've got the motion from Commissioner O'Brien to approve as amended, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. Commissioner O'Brien.
Do you want to vote on?
We'll vote on the amended agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this is just an update from Jeff Smith's office on the quarterly tourist development tax report. And I was kind of surprised, and Jeff, maybe you could help highlight it here. Jeff has this broken down from the sources of the tourist tax. Timeshares, mobile homes, and boarding apartments are very small percentages. Hotel and motel, as you would expect, is around 60%. But I didn't realize we're already collecting about 35% from short-term rentals. And Jeff, how many accounts is that are contributing? Do you know offhand?
We have a total of 477 registered accounts. Not all of those pay. We're tracking down the reasons why some of those don't pay. Some of them are just not renting. But the total registered accounts right now are 477. That includes all types of rental activities, including hotels.
Including hotel?
Yes.
So we don't have it broken down on how many short-term rental accounts we have?
We can get that information for you, yes.
All right, because I was just surprised to see that high of a dollar volume.
Me too.
And then, going forward, if we end up taking action to pass a local license and require them to get their, I would imagine that number is bound to go up
Increase,
significantly.
yes.
So
Yes.
actually, this was really interesting, Jeff. Thank you for providing that, and move to approve the report.
Second. We have a
Question after.
motion to approve from Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. Commissioner Zork.
Yes, Jeff, I have two questions for you. When we look at short-term rentals, that could be an apartment complex that maybe rents to flight students for less than 6 months, so it's not a
Correct.
standalone type single-family house being rented.
Correct.
And the flight safety campus, the dorms that they have there, is there a provision for educational related housing, like when you have student housing? I don't know how those are.
Yeah, that's part of flight safety proper, and they pay for, as part of their tuition, they pay for the housing, so they're exempt from the tourist tax.
Okay, all right, good. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is, well, we need a motion to approve.
We did. I don't think we voted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to public items, public hearing, consideration of disposition of county-owned surplus properties for affordable housing. Good morning, Stan and Sasan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, for the record, Community Development Director Stan Bowling and Sasan Rahani's joining me here. He managed this particular process in years past and this year as well. This is our 2016 county-owned surplus lands action. In 2006, the state legislature passed a bill relating to affordable housing, and that bill requires each county in the state, beginning July 1 of 2007, and then every 3 years after that, to prepare an inventory list of all county-owned lands and determine if there are surplus lands that can be used for affordable housing purposes. So we had a July 1, 2007 deadline, a July 1 deadline in 2010, 2013, and now one coming up in 2016. And the options, according to that state mandate, is that surplus properties owned by the county can be disposed of in one of three ways to help affordable housing. They can be sold, and then the funds can go to an affordable housing program like our SHIP program here in Indian River County. They could be sold to a developer or someone that could develop them as permanent affordable housing, or donate them with a restriction to a nonprofit housing organization. In the past, we've gone through this process, preparing a list of county-owned lands. And in 2007, the first time we did it, we donated lands to nonprofit housing organizations, Habitat for Humanity, and Every Dream Has a Price. They built on some of those lots. Some of the lots they returned. It just wasn't feasible for them to use. And Coalition for Attainable Homes also, started the process. But again, it was not feasible ultimately, and they returned some of those lots. And so when we went through this process in 2010 and 2013, the board took the option of directing the purchasing division to simply sell the surplus properties and deposit those proceeds in our SHIP fund, and that is the option actually that we are recommending this morning as well. The last time in 2013, we had only 8 surplus properties. 2 were sold for $5,400. There was no interest in the other 6 properties, and they remain surplus. This time around, planning staff, Sasan in particular, coordinated with the county's GIS staff and updated the county-owned properties list, and we just wanted to really thank and recognize the GIS department. They did some different things this time around in terms of mapping and ferreting out all the information, and that really helped all the other departments review the information. They provided some good maps and aerials that's in your backup material. We identified 431 county-owned properties. Again, involved all the different county departments in identifying their use. Almost all the properties have a particular public use. They're right-of-way, stormwater management, conservation, parks, or other county-related uses, but 20 of the 431 parcels are not designated for any specific public use, and they can be deemed by you all to be appropriate for disposal for affordable housing purposes. And this is just a slide of information that you have in your backup, the 20 different parcels. Some, it appears, could be buildable. They're all residential. Some of them are smaller portions of properties, maybe would have value if combined with an adjacent property. Again, the approach that we believe from our experience, and the board has followed the last 2 times, is to sell the 20 lots, put them up for sale, and any proceeds going to our state-funded local program that goes to assist a purchase or rehabilitation of homes for extremely low, very low income, and some moderate income households. Any potential purchaser of a lot must do their own due diligence and determine the buildability of the lot. Again, some are very small, some are landlocked. We know of one that has a flow well on it that would need to be worked on. Some may not be individually buildable, but again, may have value if added to an adjacent property. Our recommendation is twofold. One, that the board review the list, make any appropriate changes, and approved the resolution that's attached to the list, and direct the purchasing division to sell those 20 properties and contribute proceeds to the county's affordable housing, the SHIP trust fund. And again, I'd be glad to answer any questions. We want to thank the other departments that have been involved in this process. And ultimately, Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stan, when we purchase a property for right-of-way, like along 26th Street where we've had to buy the entire house, and then we take what we need for the right-of-way, and then we've sold off those, does that go to the SHIP fund, or does that roll back into right-of-way?
Those go back into the fund where we purchase the property, say impact fees, usually traffic impact fees. We reimburse the fund that originally paid for the cost.
Good. All right, thank you.
Right. Commissioner Davis.
So just so I have this right, these properties, looks like we got most of them back for the tax deed.
Correct.
And so have they sat on the lands available list? Don't they have to do that first?
Yes, they do. And
Okay.
they have.
They've been on the lands available list for long enough to the point that they have now escheated back to the county?
Yes.
Okay. With that said, then my question is this. I would like to know, and this is important, I think, because we're going to have a policy question, in my opinion, versus the average person doing their due diligence. I would like to know how many of these lots have a utility account on them. Because if we have just one, we've created the situation, again, where that utility-based capacity charge is not going to be cleansed from title We've created something that even the state statute doesn't address, and it's like the holy grail down here. As far as we've always made it so that base capacity charge had to be paid, and it very well could be a situation where the base capacity charge is worth more, is more in value as far as dollar-wise than the lot is worth, and therefore the perfect train wreck that I've been talking about for quite a while about what are we going to do about these base capacity charges when they get to that point. We may have to finally make a policy decision on what to do.
Right, and I think, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, we can certainly get that information. I think what may very well happen, again, if the board proceeds here, is if there's an issue with any one of those properties for that particular reason, they won't be sold, and they'll remain surplus, and we'll still have the policy issue to address, which we will be coming back to you on.
But didn't we direct staff to come back to us with some proposal or ideas to deal with that exact type of problem?
On demolition sites, that was the genesis of it, and the attorney's office and staff are working on coming back.
And so on this one, I mean, basically, the whole process has gone through. There's no chance that we would get any member of the public to pay for any dollars for this, correct? Except for the buyer of the land.
Perhaps in today's market, yes.
But except for the buyer of the land, but the person who did not pay the fee.
Right.
So, I mean, we could go ahead, if there was a motion, to just ask staff to see, direct staff to see how many charges there are on which properties, and then come back to us with the idea of whether or not, if we can, Mr. DeBrawl, just expunge that charge off of that piece of property.
Yes, there are the governmental liens that would be a utility lien, a code enforcement lien, a demolition lien, tax lien, something like that, imposed by the federal government would survive a tax deed sale. Just looking at these preliminarily, I think every one of them on the list before you has been escheated to the county for lack of payment of taxes. So every single lot here is escheated.
And the significance of that, Commissioners, when the tax deed's applied for, then it sits on the lands available. And the lands available list that the county has, those properties cannot be sold for less than the amount of ad valorem taxes, because the county probably most purchased the tax certificates at an 18% interest rate, and it sat there, and the money due to the local governments. Once it escheats, then it's owned by the county in a fashion that we can in fact sell it for less than the actual tax that's owed. So that's why it's significant for it to go through the process, and it used to be a 7-year process. It's not nearly that long now anymore, though.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. And I know by going through this process, that keeps us in compliance of the H-Bill 1363. And I have not talked to the land trust about this, but I know they have done, at least I know of a couple of pocket parks where they'll take a very small piece of land in a neighborhood setting, and I know there's one at A1A and 17th Street Bridge, the southeast corner, that was given to them for a pocket park area, and it's very, very small. It was probably, 40 by 80, a very small piece, but they spruced it up, put in some sitting areas and things like that. Once they go to the surplus list, and this would probably work more in the unbuildable lot situation. If they had an interest in it, again, I have not spoken to them about the pocket park idea other than they've done a couple of these. How could a mechanism like that work? I guess they'd have to come forward with a proposal, and then we would have to consider what to do with it.
I think that's correct, and again, it kind of gets down to the initiative of whether it's the right location for the neighborhood,
Right.
if they're going to take on the maintenance responsibilities, or if the county is going to take
Right.
on responsibilities and that sort of thing. But that would be part of the process.
Okay.
That could be part of the process, certainly. And you're right; those are probably less likely to actually get sold anyway,
Right.
because they're not buildable separately.
Right. Okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and I'll now open the public hearing. If there's anybody from the audience who wishes to comment on this. Anybody from the audience wish to comment? There being none, I'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, staff is recommending option 1, which is to surplus the properties and use the proceeds to contribute to the SHIP fund. So I'll Move staff recommendation of option one.
We have a motion from option one from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Zork. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We now move to a public hearing and confirmation of resolutions for 51st Avenue Petition Millings Project at 65th Street to 67th Street. And we have Mr. Rich Spierker, who is going to discuss this with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Spierker, Assistant Public Works Director. What we have before you today is the public hearing for the confirming resolution for the 51st Street Avenue Petition Millings Project between 65th Street and 67th Street in Winter Beach Highlands subdivision. The residents approached the county staff and they petitioned us to provide this service to them. 24 parcels are involved in the project, 74% of which were in favor of the project. The minimum requirement in favor by Indian River County Code is 66.7%. On March 15th, the Board of County Commissioners approved the resolution for the Millings project between 65th and 67th Street, and they also approved the public hearing for today. The residents have requested that the millings be placed in the same general location as the roadway exists today. No roadway widening, shoulder work, or drainage improvements will be part of this project. The owners consented to using the square footage to calculate the assessment cost for the project and requested that we move forward based on that approval. The total cost of the project, $74,731. The total assessment to the residents will be $57,169, and the county will allocate $18,000 toward the project, 25%. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners move to approve the confirming resolution and the attached assessment roll with any changes after the public hearing.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, this is done on a square front footage basis, linear foot of the lots?
This is based on square footage of the lot. I ran the numbers for if we did linear footage. Basically, it comes the same except for the corner lots. Because they have a large frontage, they would actually increase by almost twice the amount.
And what about just doing it on a residential unit basis?
Excuse me?
On a residential unit basis, not per parcel, but per residence.
It pretty much is this. It comes to the same cost.
Any other questions of staff? There being none, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Anybody from the public wish to comment? There being none, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen.
Move approval.
Second. Motion to approve from Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Zork.
Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
I've got a little situation here where I was approached by a widow that and I drove it the other day, and her assessment's going to be better than $7,000 because she does have multiple lots right there, and I would prefer to see this. And I guess it's just her when I look at how it varies, but I'm going to vote against this because I'd rather it be more on an individual unit basis for a residence versus, but she does have several lots there, but only one house on it, so I'm going to oppose it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Commissioner Davis voting against. Thank you very much. We now have public discussion items. A request to speak from Michael Marsh regarding body cameras for Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, County Commissioners. Do I need to state my address or just
Yeah, name and address, please.
Michael Marsh, P.O. Box 691061, Vero Beach, Florida. First, I want to thank you very much to Ms. Roy. She explained the process. I speak a lot down in Palm Beach Gardens. Sheriff Lohr is here today. I would like to ask him a couple questions regarding the implementation of body cameras, if I'm allowed to. But beforehand, I just want to mention real quick why this is very passionate for me, why I am so passionate about this. Young man on my shirt is Corey Jones, very good friend of mine, I'm sure, in Palm Beach Gardens on October 18th. He was shot and killed by Officer Newman Raja. That case As of last week, went to the grand jury, which is a travesty of justice in itself. Anyhow, since that murder occurred, House Bill 93 was a piece of literature that was basically created from the shooting of Corey Jones, which basically stated if agencies such as the Indian County Sheriff's Office and others, if they have body cameras and they're using them, well, they're mandated to follow certain rules as far as the storage, the cloud, the maintenance of these body cameras. Well, that's great, but it did not mandate all these law enforcement agencies to have body cameras. So in other words, it would have done nothing for my friend Corey Jones. As I am understood, I guess the budget from the Indian County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Laura has already submitted, and if I may, I'd like to ask him some questions about the budget in regards to, does he feel body cameras is something that he's going to bring forth to his agency, if I may do so?
This would be up to the sheriff if he wanted to come. You're here actually to speak to the Board of County Commissioners, and the sheriff is here as a courtesy to us. So it'd be up to him whether he wants to engage in this, but I would ask you to understand that he's doing this on his own volition, and this ought to be as sort of polite as possible. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sheriff Laura. You just submitted the new budget for the upcoming year?
I did.
Was body cameras an initiative that you are going to roll out?
Not.
Can you tell me what's the reason?
Well, as you cited legislation, that is, if an agency has body cameras, there'll be policies and procedures in place. We expect that legislation to continue to grow like a lot of different legislations. The fact of the matter is, for a medium-sized agency as ours, it's a very expensive endeavor, and my decision was not to include those in the capital purchases. Thank you.
When you say expensive, what was the math as far as the implementation of the cameras, the training, as well as the cloud storage?
Well, there's a lot more to body-worn cameras, not only to include the initial capital purchase, the storage, as you mentioned, with respect to additional servers and or clouds, which we are not exactly familiar with as of yet. Furthermore, Florida State Statute 119 addresses public records. The expense of redacting the volume of body-worn camera videos that we would expect has got to be explored. As this commission knows, we try to be as conservative as possible in submitting our budget, and I elected not to include those in the 16-17 budget. Thank you.
From your research, Sheriff, what would you think that number would be to implement it?
Couldn't tell you.
As far as expenses go, and I'm not sure the proper term, maybe you can tell me. The tank, the military tank, what's the proper name that you?
Commissioners, I'm not here to engage in military tanks and the like, but I appreciate your comments, Mr. Marsh, and hopefully things work out for you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheriff. I will note that the sheriff submitted his budget, that it's probably up as much as he's going to get support for already, that there are a couple major components of his budget, including health care, over which he has no control, but which the citizens of Indian River County are going to pay, and the bringing back of some positions that were eliminated, or not eliminated, that were not filled during the Great Recession. And I know for myself, at this point in time, I would much rather see positions that were not filled prior to some new endeavor like body cameras. And quite frankly, given the additional expense of the health insurance, which I believe is about $1 million by itself, that he would have very difficult support getting my vote for something that was going to be in addition to that at this time. So with that, I appreciate your comments.
Just to elaborate on that. And just to give you an idea, we've just come through the Great Recession, as Commissioner Solari alluded to. We're really putting a focus and an effort on the infrastructure of public safety. And we've updated a lot of the automobiles and that kind of stuff to see to it that those in the green and whites have good equipment as best we possibly can. But we also have more than that just to worry about. We had a very aging fleet of ambulance and fire trucks that we did a lot of deferred maintenance on, deferred purchases, and we now have a 5-year plan that we're about 3 years into that will be to the point where everything will be within the life expectancy age and mileage for their first responders. So it's not that we're saying we disagree with you. It's not that. But I've got a saying that, that we have necessities and we have niceties. And right now we're working on the necessities. And I think that when we look into the future, as far as the body cameras, I believe it will happen. The unique thing about it is I believe as it happens, the technology, the laws, the ability to make it user-friendly, to redact as well as to get the information as government agencies must provide according to the state statute, that technology will eventually get there. And with a county our size, similar to what the sheriff just mentioned, a county our size, we always can't be first on everything. And so they'll get cheaper the more they're mass produced. And it's just one of those things that I don't think anybody's really disagreeing with what you're saying, as much as we just can't do it right now.
Just had one question. I thank you for your comments. What I noticed Miami-Dade and other counties, kind of similar to Indian River County, and Palm Beach Gardens was one. There was federal grants from the Department of Justice. I mean, don't you think that could be an avenue that can be explored?
We get very leery about federal grants up here because they have strings attached somehow. But so I'm not going to say yes, I'd be in favor of that without seeing the devil in the details.
But the other thing is, quite frankly, we're not here to manage the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department is his to run, and he's an elected official. So while we approve the budget, we don't tell him how to run his agency, and I don't believe that we ought to tell him how to run his agency.
Oh, I understand, but you guys approved the budget, so if it came towards you guys, would you guys be in agreement?
Well, I just clearly said that at this time, there's no possible way I would vote for it, because we've got $1 million in additional health care costs we're facing. We've got, hopefully, to fill some positions that haven't been filled in about 8 years. And as Commissioner Davis pointed out, we've got still some deferred maintenance and deferred capital expenditures that we haven't caught up with since the Great Recession. So we're focused on catching up and doing those things that we need to do before we take on new endeavors like body cameras.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Davis.
We'll now move to a request to speak from the Gifford Economic Development Council regarding Gifford follow-up. Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Wanda White Scott, and I like to be called Wanda Scott. And I'm 4306 26th Avenue. Give me just a moment here. With the amount of work that is required to get our community back up to par or to a level of a community, it's just like full-time work. And as many of you know, that I am retired, disabled retired Navy, and it's just not enough hours in the day. I think I stayed up to 3 this morning, and I kept doing this with the computer, and I said, I better get into bed and at least lay down for a minute or two. And I am going to follow up with more letters. I've been out getting pictures, getting data, collecting information, researching, and it's a lot. So where do I start? What I'm going to do, I guess every couple of weeks we'll come in. We're not going to take care of everything every time I come. We're going to do with a few issues at a time, because this is huge, it's major. Public safety is the first thing, and that is paramount. Taxation without representation and receiving tangible items or services and deliverables. That is one of my concerns. And then the quality of service when we do get those services, and then being efficient and effective. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, that was a career decision when work was produced or manufactured and it was poor quality. Someone lost their career or was written up. And with the amount of errors that we see in our community, you know, we should start to see some heads roll, but accountability is also on the list. And neglect and negligence are areas that's hot on my page here. I'm like, wow. The more I dig, the sicker I get. Physically, I get physically ill from digging up the things that have happened to Gifford, Wabasso, Fellsmere, areas of Fellsmere, and areas of Oslo. Why do we have 4 predominantly areas where African American are living or in slum and blighted areas in Indian River County, one of the, used to be the 6th richest county in the state of Florida. So the more I dig, the more sicker I get. But however, with the help of this commission, I know we're gonna resolve it. And I know we're gonna pick those pieces or whatever those pieces are and turn this thing around and do what is right. Now I'm going to go to my notes quickly, and as I said, I'm a disabled Navy veteran, retired 21 years. I'm a freelance Ebony news correspondent out of Brevard County. I don't even have the time to put in articles like most reporters. I'm just volunteering because I wanted to get stuff, information from Indian River County into that paper, because that paper goes to Melbourne and Orlando, and then it's for south of Stewart. But my hands are full and my hands are tied right now. Economics is the #1 thing right now, economics. So I am a board member of the Gifford Economic Board, Economic Council, and that's why I'm here before you. The few issues about public safety, and I think we heard a little bit about public safety. The breakdown of a community to be reduced to a hood or a slum or blighted area. That is, I try not to be emotional about this, but I am passionate. Why am I passionate? Because I live in that community. I was born, I was raised there. I graduated from high school. I left, served this country 21 years, returned back, not just for Gifford, not for Florida, but the USA and whatever countries we were associated with. Put lives, my life, many of my, for this country. And then I think about my community. When I traveled abroad, all I could think about, well, I want to do my best. I want to return so that my community can feel proud of me for the things that I've done to protect our community. I returned back to this community, and I'm like the Indian on the horse. You remember that commercial? And there's a tear rolling down his cheek. That's how I feel. Because I said, what the heck has happened here? And it's perplexed me to the point where I go without sleep. There's a team of people that research, that's doing a lot of researching, and they're not physically ill, but I am, because I'm too passionate about this. I grew up in a time where, picture this, we had dirt road, dusty roads, minimum street lights, mosquitoes, snakes, palmetto bushes, but it was a safe community. People went to work sun up to sundown. They left their doors open. Funerals took place in Alabama, Georgia, Carolinas. They left their homes unlocked. It was a time when if a crime took place, we knew it within 12 hours. We knew who did it, why they did it. It was solved. Yet we didn't have all the amenities, all the technology, but it was a relatively safe community. No unemployment. No, well, we had about 1% dropout rate because sometimes the father or the mother or someone took ill. And, but this was a time when there was high home ownership. People owned their own homes, and they took pride. The homes were kept in immaculate condition. Today, you go in, you drive through Gifford, and the area is blighted. The homes are barely, oh, excuse me. I thought I had put this on. Give me just a moment here. All right, sorry about that. The homes, they were maintained back in the day, and people had very little resources, but they were hardworking people. And it was a community. People were able to send their children off to college, military. Sometimes 2 to 3 people out of a household went to the military, or 2 or 3 went off to college. Less than 1% were controlled substance. Most of the time it was alcohol or someone returning back from Vietnam on some type of psychotropic drugs. Less than 1%. But we were a community. Crime was at a minimum, but with very little technology. So here we are, 2016, and we're still trying to figure out what happened. Did it happen in the 70s when we integrated, from 1969 to 1970 when we integrated into the schools, and then there was a desegregation order in 1967 to be implemented in Indian River County. It never happened. Then I said, wow, that's miseducation. What else has happened? The infrastructure. That's where I come in. Now, I've built a small relationship with Richard. Chris Morris leaving. But I think I know most of you, all of the players, all of you. Been around probably about 7 or 8 years, interfacing and so forth. You know, it saddens me, but I must come before you about this. I want to go over we talk about the infrastructure, and my hand starts to shake, and I'm like, why? The culverts, you know, the galvanized pipes, I have but I don't think I'm gonna bring them out today. The pictures, everything leads to the ocean. What happened? What causes a community? I was looking at the book, was it Bridge Out of Poverty or something to that effect. I think most of you read it. But what happened in Gifford? The culverts, the drainage of the water, the drying out of the land. So that takes me back to 1926, because that date just seemed to stand out. A lot of things happened. So I'm thinking it happened in the 70s, but it might have were part of the plans in the 20s. We're still digging, just kind of roughing it. But the culverts have a lot to do with the breakdown of our community, the lack of culverts, or the lack of maintenance, the lack of repairs, the lack of improvements. The infrastructure, when the infrastructure is down or not maintained, it takes a community from a thriving community to a hood. When it's unkept, it's not maintained. I had the little girl that was with us a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her, I said, when you go into a neighborhood, how do you know it's an affluent neighborhood and it's a hood? And she said, it's unkept. The place is not mowed. The trees are dead. This is that. There's garbage everywhere. And I said, wow. When I go across that track off Old Dixie and I cross either 43rd, 41st, 45th, 49th, that's the first thing that I see. Now, we paid taxes We've been paying taxes since 1896, which means Gifford is 120 years old. We put a lot of taxes into Indian River County. And I have to go back to what I was saying earlier about deliverables, things that are tangible, services. 120 years old, and what do we have to show for the taxes that have been paid into the county? What do we have? Why are we a hood, a slum, a blighted neighborhood when we clearly have paid the taxes? Sometimes we're probably the ones that are paying taxes because we know when you get in a certain level, and I've been there, you start to pay, you have these loopholes, and you pay less and less taxes when you reach a certain threshold or income. I'm not there anymore, but I know the drill. But Gifford pays a lot of taxes, and I'm just speaking for Gifford, but we have 3 other blighted areas that are paying just as many taxes, and we want the deliverables, and we want the services that not a hookup, but what we're entitled to based on the revenue that we put into the system. And this is where I'm coming from. I don't care for a hookup. I want what is just, what is right, what is efficient, what is effective, what is quality service. I'm going to do the 4 streets, and then we'll save the other stuff because I have a lot, but we're going to save the other stuff. Let's start on 49th Street. There's we've already talked with this about Richard, the number of those areas that are ready to collapse. I've been checking out there, taking pictures. I see where the blue paint, I see the flags. So I know the county is making some efforts. I see where they changed Victory Park, and they've taken whatever it's near the canal, I can't think of the name. They made some changes, and I'm gonna follow that closely. 45th Street, we still have problems with the dead trees or dying trees. Right there at 40th and 45th, I had some pictures, but I couldn't get the thing to work this morning. When you come out and you either turn left or right, the trees are directly in your sight, so you have to continue to go further out and nearly cause an accident. That has not been corrected. And there's another area, I think it's right by 33rd and 45th, more dying trees that are in the path. And when I say dying trees, they put the trees out there, and I think I've seen them water maybe 10 times. 10 times. And could be why the trees are dying, or could they have gotten poor quality trees? I don't know. It's something. 43rd Street, we still have the ongoing with between 28th Avenue and 28th Court and 29th Avenue. It is improved, but it still needs some work over there. Also, I looked at some of the culverts for 29th and 30th. Those have not been touched since 1920. Well, maybe 1930, 1940. It's got the concrete bags. I am going to get those pictures, and I'll get those addresses to Richard, and we're going to build a good, strong relationship because we do want this resolved. I believe once the culvert, the infrastructure start to come up, we can begin to see some changes of going away from a hood back to a community. Because that's all we want is a community, just like you all, a safe and viable community. When you lay down your head, you know no one's going to break into your house or whatever, but a relatively safe community. Now, 41st Street, I had a couple of concerns on that. And last year in October, right after the fiscal budget, what did I do with it? Here it is. I was here and we were talking about the MSTU and the MS, what did I do with the book? Oh, here it is. The Avaloran Taxing District, the MSTU and the MSBU. Okay, what does that mean on 41st Street? We go back to the East Gifford Stormwater, MSBU. This is where we were charged $10 per parcel for a pond off of 41st Street. So in our research, we were looking, because we still have a problem with massive flooding, just for minimum amount of rain, not a lot of rain, and water that continues to stand up into the next day. I'm like, what is going on? I thought we had culverts, we had drainage, we had all of the proper things in place, because I think that's what was brought up last year, right after the fiscal budget, or I think it was during the fiscal budget, that was built for drainage. So in my research and photographic, looking street by street, we saw no drainage, no culverts, no hookups, no outing into the pond. So how is that pond benefiting Gifford? Yet we're paying for services and we're not getting quality deliverables. And is it effective? Because we clearly continue to have flooding and standing water with minimum rain, not a lot of rain. And that is as current as yesterday. If you drive through Gifford on close to the railroad track. Now we did see where the culverts really started, which was on 28th Avenue. And on the east side of 28th Avenue, we saw evidence of where some culverts and drainage were once there. But on this side, on the west side, there's the concrete bags, and then there's the culverts, and then throughout various areas. So all the way east up to the railroad track, there is no drainage. And yet we paid for, under the MSTU and the MSBU and the East Gifford Stormwater, and I believe this is $19,000 that it came up to. And I don't know what it is on the budget for this year, but that's a lot of money for no services. And if there is services, let's look at the quality of services. And is it efficient or is it effective? And it kind of goes back to taxation, I don't know, without representation. You can throw that in there. Or is it negligence or neglect? What is it? You don't have to answer this. But gentlemen, we are being charged for services we're not receiving. And that's what brought us here, the Gifford Economic Development Council, is the services we're not receiving, the services we're supposed to receive and not getting, or the services state that we're getting, and there's no evidence of these services. In order to have our community back on up to, or excuse me, in order to have our hood or our slum blighted area to return back to a community, we must do some things. Richard is going to work with us with the culverts and the infrastructure. But there's one complete area, and that is the Gifford Business District. The roads haven't been repaired since 1973. We did have one cleanup, that was October 20th, 2015, and they kind of bumped here and there, but yet there were trees that were still, had covered the signs, the stop signs. And it was such exciting to see them doing some repairs that everybody stopped what they were doing just to look and see, wow, they're repairing, they're doing some work in Gifford. We were just excited, people just stopped. But the services that they do, we want it to be efficient and effective. And we want our deliverables like they're supposed to. Just like when you go to buy a washer or dryer, and it says it's gonna wash this many loads and it's gonna clean to this, you expect deliverables. And if it does not do that, then you're gonna go back and say, hey, here's my warranty. I want either a refund or I want this repaired or brought up to warranty. Oh, I'm here today saying I want our warranty because we paid the taxes, not for a hookup, but for services. And right now, our community is in a state of negligence or neglect.
Ms. Scott, it's been about 20 minutes. If you could, it would help if you get to specifics for today.
Okay. Well, what and I appreciate you gentlemen for being so patient with me, because I am a little bit long-winded and I'm passionate about what I have to say. Oh, okay. Okay, I forgot about this. And I'm gonna get to the point. We've spent $3 million on 45th Street. And you know, I've kind of picked at the trees and so forth. But what I wanna know about efficiency and effectiveness, when is the job's gonna be completed? With the roads, right now, people's tires are bursting, and I don't know whether we should get people's information and send a bill, because the road it's whatever, they've scraped it, but it's at a point where it's tearing up people's tires. So when are we gonna have this job completed and everything in place so that we can resume normal?
I'll get him to say it. Well, on that one, that's a specific question, and I can ask Mr. Spierke if he'd come up and address that. I will note that you've brought up drainage a number of times, and that project was delayed when we started the project and found 6 culverts that were in disrepair. And instead of just repaving over the culverts, we went to, the taxpayers of Indian River County went to very great expense to replace those culverts so we'd do the job the right way and make sure that there was a quality product at the end. So I believe that we're doing the right thing in that area, and that the product that Gifford's going to receive is going to be a tremendous product. As evidence of that, you can just go to Martin Luther King Park, which has been totally revitalized. You may not like it, but I've talked to a lot of people from Gifford who actually think it's one of the best things that's happened to the community. So, Mr. Spierke, if you could address Ms. Scott's question as to when you'd anticipate the first phase of the 45th Street beautification project to be complete.
It's a cemetery, Commissioner Solari, and it's still reporting as a cemetery. So
yes, ma'am.
I know it says you've made it into a park, but the state still recognizes it as a cemetery. So I can't get excited when I know there's bodies and things out there and possible toxins that could cause my children to, some kind of disease or cancer or something like that. I can't get excited.
Well, you can't, but I've been to a lot of cemeteries throughout America. One of my greatest ones that I like to go to is the one in Savannah, which are initially started as parks, but are used by the communities as cemeteries. And I'm unaware of any toxins in Martin Luther King Park. We did do, or through the health department, a survey to make sure that we identified where all the graves were so that we could properly give them the honor and respect that was due. But myself, I think that an area which has been radically cleaned up is much more respectful to the dead and the living community of Gifford than than what was there. So what we've done, I think, is better for the dead and respecting and honoring the dead, and for the living who go to appreciate the dead and what they've done and enjoy what's there now. So that's an area where we can disagree, but I think as far as the people in Gifford, that the majority of the people, the vast majority, like what's been done and prefer that to what was there. Mr. Spierke.
Rich Berka, Assistant Public Works Director. We anticipate that the project will be complete within the next 3 weeks.
Well, thank you
The
very
final paving will go down hopefully by the end of next week. Right now, one of the things that we have postponed the paving for a few days is Indian River Farms is going to clean the canal on the south side of 45th Street.
So it makes
before we pave.
So it makes good sense, given the type of
Makes-
drag lines they use to clean the canal, to wait until that work is done before we put down the
Yes,
asphalt.
sir. I had a conversation with David Gunner this morning. He's moving crews in there tomorrow to clean that. He anticipates it'll take a couple of days, maybe 3, to clean that canal, and then we'll proceed forward. But it made no sense for him to go in there after we got paved, which was his schedule, and get on the new asphalt.
Thank you very much.
I thank you for the motions to, and you've been, Mr. Richard, you've sent me a couple of letters, and I am going to follow up with those letters. It's just so much going on in Gifford. I mean, a lot. And the more we dig, the more stuff falls out. It's like opening a closet with a bunch of skeletons, and they're falling out. However, thank you for your time. Thank you for being patient. And then what I'll do, I'll come back every couple of weeks, so it's a lot of me today, and then that gives us time to, and then I'll come back again with more data. Thank you again for listening and coming to some type of understanding. We don't necessarily have to agree on everything, but at least you heard me, and I feel you heard me. Before in the past, I haven't felt that, but today I feel like you heard me, and thank you again. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. This is a good time to take about a 10-minute break. Thank you. Move on to public notice items. There is a notice of scheduled public hearing for May 10th, 2016 to consider amending Chapter 315 of the Code of Indian River County to include regulations and prohibitions of certain activities relating to medical marijuana. This will be a legislative item, memorandum dated April 29th, 2016. And from there, we will move to the Office of Management and Budget, the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award Year 2015-2016, memorandum dated April 20th, 2016. Mr. Brown.
Actually, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Smykowski to make this
Not used to
presentation.
the switch yet. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Michael Smykowski.
And Michael, do you have some people who are with you? Do you want to have them come up to the podium?
Oh, sure.
Now, they're waiting so patiently back there. I thought they're actually Jason Brown's support group for his first time as acting county administrator, but I realized that they're actually here.
No, they have been very helpful for that.
For the
I think we're
presentation.
missing one. Did Kristen step out for a minute?
She stepped in.
Yes.
I think we're going to see a lot of this team in June and July, Mr.
So this is a preview, yes.
Yes.
Indeed. I'm pleased to be before you today, though, as Indian River County was recently awarded the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. To achieve this award, our budget had to satisfy nationally recognized criteria, in 4 major program areas: as a policy document, as a financial plan, as an operations guide, and as a communications device. Indian River County has received this award for 25 consecutive years, so we're a longstanding participant in the program. However, this is not a program where you can rest on your laurels. Rather, it's a program that requires continuous improvement. There's a team of independent budget reviewers who annually make recommendations on how to improve your document, and it's required that you actually make changes in order to satisfy the ongoing criteria. So you can't just maintain the status quo and hope to earn this award every year. So it is subject to, again, continuous improvement. When I interviewed with Indian River County, I asked Jason how you got all the budget work done with just a 4-person budget office, and he told me, you run a mean and lean organization here.
Did he say that Joe Bear is a penny pinch and tightwad, and that's why we only have 4 people?
I plead the Fifth Amendment on that.
Mr. Bear's not here to defend himself, so I'll refrain from answering
He'd actually
that.
say, yes, I am, so don't worry about that.
Well, I think that's a character trait of most budget officers, Jason and myself included. So I'm not going to malign Mr. Baird because I'm probably in the same company along with him.
He read the memo.
We are fortunate, though, to have a very strong budget team in place here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to recognize their efforts. They take on the challenge of responding to those reviewer comments and addressing them and making ongoing improvements to our budget documents. So Kristen Daniel, Ruth Bomarito, they are the 2 budget analysts on staff, and then Carol Bergeron is our budget support specialist. So with that, we're happy to be able to report that, again, we were a recipient of that award, and I thank you for the opportunity today. Since staff is down here, if we could arrange for a photo, that would be great.
Absolutely. Come on up.
Okay. Given that this award was not earned on my watch, I'm going to ask Jason to step down from the dais and stand in with the budget team. And
his last award.
His last award. A year from now, I will hope to be standing in that position with the 26th award.
Hopefully he's going to strive for a different award next year.
A little to the right.
We think our own people could do a little better.
That's not the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mike, I just want to say that you said this award was not achieved on your watch, but I know you anticipate on having one next year.
I do indeed.
One more plaque, and we won't have to paint that entire wall. No, I want you to know that you've been approachable, and you've been informative, and I truly am appreciating the transition that Jason and yourself have accomplished as we enter into the budget season, and I think it's going to be seamless, especially with your limited but highly acclaimed staff.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity that I've been given.
And limited only in numbers, not in capacity or ability.
Indeed.
Well,
Thank you.
Just one last thing.
Yes, sir.
You notice how they review the budget book and they suggest more and more. I mean, I think we've come to a limit. The budget book is 3 times thicker than it was about 15 years ago. Can you ask them now to kind of like willow it down a little bit? You know,
Indeed, that is in fact an issue. You have to run that balance between readability and usability versus everyone. It's always more.
Yeah, it's losing some of that usability with the length it's getting. So anything they can do to cut it down would be appreciated.
Okay.
More
Very good.
spreadsheets too.
Well, we don't need any more in that book. It's got it probably enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jason and everybody from your office, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll go on to departmental matters, Public Works, 2nd Street Petition Millings Project, 35th Avenue and 32nd Avenue. We have resolutions to provide funds and to set a public hearing. Good morning again, Rich.
Good morning, Rich Berka, Assistant Public Works Director. What we have before you today is a request for petition millings on 2nd Street from 35th Avenue to 32nd. There's 20 parcels within the project, and of those 20 property owners' parcels, 78% of the property owners were in favor of the project. Again, the Indian River County Code requires 66.7% approval to move forward. The proposed improvements are about 900 feet long, starting at 32nd Avenue, which is paved, going to 35th Avenue. The millings will be placed in the existing right-of-way, be 18 feet wide, and there'll be minimal shoulder work to harmonize the existing grades. There will be no drainage as part of this project. Staff determined that the assessment for the project would be based on square footage rather than the frontage, and that the homeowners, property owners consented to this, and based on that assessment. A providing resolution is also presented to you for adoption. It validates the 78% on the signatures for the proposed benefit area. The total project cost is $71,556. The total assessment to the property owners will be $54,740, and 25% of county participation, $17,889. We have 3 recommendations for you today. One is to adopt the resolution providing for the installation of the millings in the Emerson Park subdivision as outlined in the resolution. We have a second recommendation to allocate $17,889 from the secondary roads gas tax account. And the third is to adopt a resolution setting the time and place for the public hearing of June 7, 2016 at 9:05 a.m.
Thank you. We can call that one. You've
One,
got
two,
one
three?
recommendation with 3 votes, 3 aspects to it. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Spierka?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move staff recommendation 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second, but given that the nature of this, I'll just ask if there is anybody from the public who wants to speak on this. Anybody from the public who wants to speak on the millings? No one. So we have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion?
I have one. Kind of following up on Commissioner Davis's earlier comments on the other millings, just for backup, since you've kind of already run the numbers, but when you show which one that the residents came up with, if you could maybe provide the backup sheet that showed if we did linear front footage, it would be one assessment. If it's by individual lot, would be an assessment, and then the square footage, and then say the residents went with option 1, 2, or 3, or whichever one they went with, just to see, because sometimes you can, this is more of a traditional neighborhood. All the lots look like they're pretty much the same, so it's all going to come out to pretty much the same number, I would think. But I think that would just be helpful information, since you've probably already done the exercise as just backup, and then the residents would have picked one of those proposals or one costing mechanism, and I think it's just helpful to understand how the numbers can vary in some cases when you have unusual or meets and bounds or acreage pieces and things. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that I may have hit the switch early because Rich has done insurmountable work with this project. But, you know, whenever we're moving forward with a proposal or a project of community interest, we generally get a variety of phone calls. And I believe because there is so much community support in the affected areas, over 70%, I don't recall getting a call of concern as much as when can this happen. There's tremendous support to do this, And again, we're complimented by the fact that these have been trying economic times in the past few years, and when we know we're going to be speaking with individuals and they're going to have to step up to the plate and add to the coffers to make this happen for the Millings, it's quite refreshing. So there's been a lot of very positive comments, and Rich, thank you again.
Very good. Thank you, Rich. So we have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Zork for the 3 parts of staff recommendation. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
And just real quick, Mr. Chairman, on the milling program, Rich, are we looking at being able to keep the status quo as far as our patching process for the budget year coming up? Or are you looking at maybe having to increase that budget for the number of milled roads that are out there to keep them maintained?
Right now, we do have an increase in the budget for patching. What we're finding is that millings is a funny material. We're finding that some of them are holding together and we have 0 potholes in them, and they've been down 6 months, year, 2 years. And some of them, you know, we've got to do more maintenance on them like every 3 or 4 months. It's just it's a consistency of the material that you get. It's kind of hard to monitor. So I would say that because we're getting more roads, we are going to need to increase our pothole capability, so to speak, because the only way to fix a milled road is with hot mix asphalt.
Yeah.
You can't go in and grade it like you would a dirt road, but we don't go in there and grade it every 2 weeks. It's 6 months before we have to send staff out there to take care of it.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is Commissioner Matters, and we move to C, Commissioner Wesley Davis, modification of waste management pickups. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is, I believe, a classic example of not being able to have one ordinance cover every inch of the county. I had a request from some individuals that live in the A3 zoning, which is 1 unit per 20 acres on the west side of Indian River County, west of the St. Johns Marsh. And their concern is they have a recycle pickup every week, and they don't even use the residents every day of the week. And so they were looking for some kind of a modification to allow them to have something less than other residences inside the urban service area for collection. Our franchise agreement didn't allow that, and so it was one of those things that nobody really felt comfortable starting any negotiations at all or modification to the agreement without the consensus of the board. And so I'm just asking for your indulgence to move that forward.
Okay, so at this point, my understanding is we don't have much information as to how many people it may affect or anything like that. So would the proper way to begin this would be to try to get the staff to get up that type of information?
I think that the little conversation I had with Mr. Burke this morning, he'll probably be able to provide some leadership on how to move this forward.
Okay, Mr. Burke.
Hey, good morning. For the record, Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. We do have some information. Waste Management has been looking at this issue prior to today's meeting. 2 of the issues that were brought up are just the background. When we went out for the RFP process, Article 8 of the Commercial Collection Services says that the collection of solid waste shall be provided at least once per week. That's 8.2 of the contract. So we have the franchise agreement with Waste Management over the next 6 and so years that talks about the once per week. We also have our ordinance, which is in effect for many years, that was in effect prior to the franchise, Ordinance 204.19, which basically says that the owner shall remove or arrange for the removal of the contents of each receptacle when full, or once per week, whichever is more frequent. So Waste Management did look at some of the commercial accounts, looked at some of those accounts that are west of 95. Some are tied into like the Steak and Shake and the Viewer outlets, but from what we're told is of all the commercial accounts that are out west, looks like there's about 96 customers for a total of 133 lifts. But if you pare that down and filter that number down and you remove some of those that are in Fellsmere, then you're down to 75 lifts or 44 customers. And if you keep paring that down further, removing some of the outlets, some of the Steak and Shake, you start to then get to a smaller number that really is limited to those folks that are out west along 60, on the south part of 60, or out near the 20-mile bend. So we do have some limited numbers, Commissioner Solari. If we wanted to show a map, we can at least do that. But certainly we have members of Waste Management that are here if we can't answer any questions that the Commission may have.
The Steak and Shake, is that inside the urban service area?
I don't know if we can.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
I don't think that you were asking for people inside the service area to be
I didn't
exempt
have
for
the
this.
answer at all. And what I want to, in fact, please, I want everybody to understand, I didn't direct staff to be this prepared, quite frankly, so they did this on their own.
Yeah, this was
without-
just, we just found out about this 5 minutes ago.
Okay,
So Waste
all right,
Management
super.
just
So I-
happened to pull that together. So
I didn't want anybody to think that I had directed staff and stepped outside of my role as a
you can see in the
commissioner.
map at Fellsmere, you have those blue dots that are listed as the commercial accounts. You can see the congregation in and around 95 Exchange and Route 60. But then as you go further west, you can see how you do have out near the 20-mile
The
bend.
ones out there near
handful
the
of those.
turnpike are the ones that, way out there is where the specific, and I don't have the answer. It was just, this is just me responding to a concerned citizen's.
So I would think, but at this point, by consensus, we could just ask staff to take a look at it, and it may be, say with the ones at 20-mile bend, I don't even know if they'd be profitable for Waste Management. So why don't we just ask staff to take a look at it, get some more concrete numbers, have a discussion with Waste Management, and see if there is anything appropriate, given that we do have a franchise agreement, and we certainly don't want to break the franchise agreement.
Sure. And there, another thing that has kind of brought this too is the former, or one of the former haulers actually went outside the perimeter of the franchise agreement and offered a bi-monthly pickup. And so this is going to kind of sprinkle some of that back into it if both sides can mutually agree. And there's clearly, to me, there's room for it and makes sense.
And we'll see if it makes sense to the parties concerned.
Sounds great.
Very good. I think you've got direction, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Pleasure. And with that, we've actually come to the end of today's meeting. As much as I regret having to say goodbye to you today, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.